Christmas Eve was supposed to be a time of peace, but at JFK International Airport, it became a battlefield. You see a man in a pilot's uniform, impeccably dressed, calm, professional. Then you see a flight attendant screaming in his face, accusing him of being a fraud, a thief, and a liar. Why? Because according to her, people like him don't fly $70 million jets. She thought she had the power. She thought one call to the police would ruin his life. But she didn't know who he really was. She didn't know that the man she was arresting actually owned the plane. When he made his one phone call, it wasn't to a lawyer. It was to the one person who could end her career in seconds. This is the story of how a racist flight attendant lost everything in the blink of an eye. The snow outside Terminal 4 at JFK was coming down in thick, heavy sheets, the kind of whiteout that makes seasoned travelers groan and check their hotel apps. It was December 24th, 5 p.m. Inside the terminal, the air wasn't filled with holiday cheer. It was thick with the smell of stale coffee, wet wool, and aggressive anxiety. Captain Marcus Sterling adjusted the collar of his coat. He was tired. Not the kind of tired you get from a long day at the office, but the bone-deep exhaustion that comes from flying a cargo relief mission from Brazil and landing in a blizzard. At 32 years old, Marcus was an anomaly in the aviation world. He was young for his rank, undeniably handsome, and black. He stood 6'2", with a posture that commanded respect, or at least it usually did. Tonight he wasn't flying the bird he had just landed. He was deadheading, a term pilots use when they fly as passengers to get to their next assignment. He needed to get to London to pilot a specialized charter flight for a VVIP client on Christmas Day. He was wearing his full uniform, the navy blue blazer with 4 gold stripes on the sleeves, the crisp white shirt, the black tie, and the polished wings pinned above his heart. He approached the gate for Flight 229 to London Heathrow. The line for economy stretched back past the Hudson newsstand, a snake of frustrated families and crying toddlers. Marcus, holding his flight bag and a small, expensive-looking gift bag, bypassed the chaos and walked toward the priority boarding lane. That was where he met Brenda Miller. Brenda was a senior flight attendant with 25 years of experience and a chip on her shoulder the size of the fuselage. She wasn't working the cabin tonight. Due to a staffing shortage, she had been assigned to manage the gate. She hated it. She hated the cold, she hated the passengers, and she particularly hated anyone who she felt didn't belong in her prestigious first-class line. Brenda was busy berating a young mother whose stroller was half an inch too wide for the sizer when she saw Marcus approach. Her eyes didn't land on his 4 stripes or his wings. They landed on his skin color, and then they narrowed. "Excuse me." Brenda's voice cut through the terminal noise like a jagged knife. She stepped out from behind the podium, blocking the priority lane with her body. "Sir, where do you think you're going?" Marcus stopped, blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights. He offered a polite, tired smile. "Good evening. I'm deadheading to London. I'm the relief captain for the return leg." He reached into his pocket to pull out his crew ID and his boarding pass. Brenda didn't even look at his hands. She crossed her arms, tilting her head with a sneer that was dripping with condescension. "Deadheading? You?" She let out a short, sharp laugh that sounded more like a bark. "Look, honey, the costume party is downtown. This is an international airport. We take security very seriously here." Marcus paused. He was used to double takes. He wasn't used to blatant disrespect from a fellow airline employee. "I'm aware of the security protocols, ma'am. I'm Captain Sterling. I'm listed on the manifest." "Captain?" Brenda repeated the word as if it were a slur. She looked him up and down, making a show of inspecting his uniform. I've been flying with this airline since before you were born. I know every captain in the fleet, and I certainly know that we don't hire urban youth to fly wide-body aircrafts." The terminal went quiet. The people in the front of the economy line stopped shuffling. The young mother with the stroller froze. Marcus's smile vanished. His voice dropped an octave, becoming the calm, authoritative tone he used when communicating with air traffic control during turbulence. "I suggest you check the manifest, Ms." He glanced at her name tag. "Ms. Miller, I am Captain Marcus Sterling. Now, if you'll let me pass, I need to speak with the flight deck." "I'm not checking anything for a fraud," Brenda snapped, stepping closer, invading his personal space. "You think because you bought a jacket at a surplus store and pinned some plastic wings on it, you can skip the line. You're blocking actual paying customers. Get to the back of the economy line, or get out of my airport." "I am not a passenger," Marcus said, his jaw tightening. "And I am not leaving." "Oh, you're not?" Brenda's eyes lit up with a malicious glee. She had been waiting for a fight all day. "Then you're trespassing and impersonating an airline official. That's a federal offense, boy." The word boy hung in the air, heavy and toxic. A few passengers gasped. A businessman in a grey suit, standing in the first-class line behind Marcus, cleared his throat. "Excuse me, miss. He is wearing the uniform. Maybe you should just check his ID." Brenda whirled on the businessman. "Sir, do not tell me how to do my job. I am protecting your safety. Do you know how easy it is to fake a badge? Do you want a terrorist in the cockpit?" She pointed a long, manicured finger back at Marcus. "I know a fake when I see one. Look at him. Does he look like a pilot to you? Does he look like he can do the math to land a 747? Marcus took a deep breath. He knew the drill. If he raised his voice, if he showed even an ounce of aggression, he would be the angry black man. He would be tackled, tased, and removed before he could explain a thing. He had to be colder than the ice on the runway. "Ms. Miller," Marcus said, holding up his official airline ID badge, the holographic logo shimmering in the light. "This is a federally issued KCM badge. Scan it. If it doesn't clear, you can call the police. But if you refuse to scan it and continue to harass me, you are violating union protocol and obstructing a flight crew member." Brenda snatched the ID out of his hand. She didn't walk to the scanner. Instead, she held it up to the light, bending it slightly, scratching at the lamination with her fingernail. "Flimsy," she announced to the crowd, acting like a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. "The lamination is peeling. The font on Captain is off. It's a counterfeit." She tossed the ID card onto the floor. It clattered on the linoleum. Marcus stared at the badge lying by her sensible shoes. "Pick it up," he said softly. "I don't pick up trash," Brenda spat. "And I'm done playing games. You are disrupting the boarding process." She grabbed the radio clipped to her belt. "Security to gate B42. I have a code red. Impersonation of a pilot. Aggressive male subject refusing to vacate the area." "Aggressive?" Marcus asked, incredulous. "I haven't moved." "You're aggressive by existing in my space with that lie on your back," Brenda hissed. Then her eyes drifted to the gift bag in Marcus's left hand. It was a gold and black bag with the logo of Lawfers, the most exclusive jewelry store in the terminal, accessible only to ticketed first-class passengers and crew. Brenda's eyes widened, and a new, darker accusation formed in her mind. "Wait a minute," she said, her voice rising to a shriek. "I just got a bulletin about a theft at Lawfers. A $10,000 watch." She pointed at the bag. "That's where you got the money for the costume, isn't it? You stole it." "This is a Christmas gift for my mother," Marcus said, his grip on the bag tightening. "Do not touch it." "He's a thief!" Brenda yelled to the gathering crowd, playing to the audience. "He's stealing from the airport shops and using a fake pilot costume to escape. Someone grab him." Two burly male passengers from the economy line, seemingly eager to be heroes, stepped forward, blocking Marcus's retreat. "Whoa, hold on there, buddy," one of the men said, crossing his arms. "Show the lady the receipt." "I don't need to show her anything," Marcus said, his eyes scanning the corridor for actual security. "I am a senior captain for this airline." "Liar!" Brenda screamed. She lunged forward and grabbed the sleeve of his blazer. "Take off that jacket. You are disgracing this company. Take it off." "Get your hands off me." Marcus pulled his arm back. "Assault!" Brenda screamed, throwing herself back against the podium as if he had pushed her. She hadn't been touched, but she played the victim with Oscar-worthy dedication. "He hit me! Help! He hit me!" At that moment, 3 airport police officers came jogging down the concourse, hands on their holsters. The crowd parted. Brenda straightened up, smoothing her skirt, a look of triumphant malice on her face. She pointed at Marcus. "That's him, officer. He's the one. He assaulted me. He's wearing a stolen uniform, and he has stolen goods in that bag. Arrest him!" The lead officer, a thick-necked man named Sergeant Daniels, who looked like he'd already had a long night, zeroed in on Marcus. He didn't see a captain. He saw a tall black man and a crying white woman. "Sir, turn around," Daniels barked, pulling his handcuffs from his belt. "Hands behind your back, now!" "Officer, I am Captain Marcus Sterling, flight crew ID number 8940. "I said hands behind your back!" Daniels shouted, grabbing Marcus's shoulder and spinning him around. He kicked Marcus's legs apart. Click, click. The cold steel of the handcuffs locked around Marcus's wrists. Brenda watched, a smug smile playing on her lips. "Merry Christmas, you fraud," she whispered. But Marcus, even as he was being manhandled in front of 300 people, didn't struggle. He looked over his shoulder, locking eyes with Brenda. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life, Brenda," Marcus said calmly, "and I'm going to make sure the whole world sees it." The walk of shame through Terminal 4 was agonizingly slow. Sergeant Daniels made sure of that. Paraded past the very passengers he was supposed to be flying, Captain Marcus Sterling kept his head high, staring straight ahead, ignoring the whispers and the cell phones raised to record his humiliation. "See? Told you," Brenda Miller chirped, walking alongside the police escort like she was leading a victory parade. "They always try to look so dignified when they get caught. It's part of the act." They were taken to the Port Authority Police substation, located within the airport's bowels, a stark contrast to the glittering, duty-free luxury upstairs. It smelt of floor wax and unwashed bodies. Marcus was shoved into a holding cell, a chain-link cage in the corner of the squad room. He sat on the cold metal bench, still in his pilot's uniform, handcuffed behind his back. "Comfortable so, Captain?" Daniels sneered, leaning against the cage door. He turned to Brenda, who was sitting at a desk, eagerly filling out a witness statement form. "You're sure he hit you, Ms. Miller?" Brenda looked up, her eyes wide with feigned trauma. "Oh, absolutely, officer. He grabbed my arm, hard. I'm going to have bruises tomorrow. And the way he screamed at me, it was terrifying. He said he was going to take me down. He's clearly unstable, probably on drugs." "We'll add menacing and assault to the charges," Daniels said, nodding. He turned back to Marcus. "All right, tough guy. Let's inventory your stolen goods." Daniels dumped the contents of Marcus's flight bag onto a desk. He grabbed the gold and black loafer's jewelry bag. He pulled out a sleek, velvet watchbox and opened it. Inside sat a platinum Patek Philippe Nautilus, studded with diamonds. A low whistle went around the squad room. Even the other officers stopped typing to look. "Nice haul," Daniels said. This thing is worth more than my car. You got expensive taste for a guy who steals uniforms." "Check the side pocket of the gift bag," Marcus said, his voice calm, echoing slightly in the cage. "Shut up! Speak when spoken to," Daniels snapped. "Check the side pocket," Marcus repeated, his eyes intense. "There is a receipt and the certificate of authenticity registered in my name." Daniels rolled his eyes but reached into the bag. He pulled out a folded piece of heavy cardstock. He opened it, squinted at it, and then let out a derisive snort. "Look at this, Brenda," Daniels laughed, waving the paper. He printed up a fake receipt on his home computer. "Paid in full, Marcus Sterling." "Yeah, right. Like Lawfers just hands a $50,000 watch to a guy walking in off the street." "It was pre-ordered 6 months ago," Marcus said. "Scan the QR code on the receipt, Sergeant. It links directly to their inventory system." "I'm not scanning anything of yours," Daniels said, crumpling the receipt and tossing it into an evidence bag. "We'll let the detectives handle your forgery. Right now, you're being processed for assault, theft, impersonating an airline officer, and trespassing." He walked over to the cage and unlocked the door. "Stand up. Time to take the costume off. We need the jacket for evidence." "I'm a senior captain," Marcus said, not moving. "You are making a grave error. If you remove my uniform, you are desecrating a federal rank." "I'm desecrating a thief!" Daniels yelled, grabbing Marcus by the lapels of his blazer. He roughly unpinned the gold pilot wings from Marcus's chest, wings Marcus had earned through thousands of hours of grueling flight time. Daniels tossed them onto the desk like cheap toys. Then he yanked the blazer off Marcus's cuffed body, nearly dislocating his shoulder in the process. Marcus sat there in his white shirt and black tie, shivering slightly in the cold room. "Now," Daniels said, tossing a cheap prepaid phone onto the bench next to Marcus. "You get one call. Make it quick. Tell your mama not to expect you for Christmas dinner." Brenda cackled from across the room. "Tell her to bring bail money, honey." Marcus looked at the phone. He didn't call his mother. He didn't call a bail bondsman. He didn't even call the pilots' union representative. He dialed a number from the memory, a number that very few people in the world possessed. The phone rang twice before it was answered. The voice on the other end was gravelly, powerful, and irritated at being disturbed on Christmas Eve. "This line is for emergencies only. Who is this?" "Arthur, it's Marcus." There was immediate silence on the other end. The irritation vanished, replaced by a sharp, attentive focus. "Marcus, where are you? You were supposed to be wheels up for London in 20 minutes. My client is waiting." "There's been a change of plans, Arthur. I'm currently in a holding cell at JFK Substation 4. A pause. A very long, very heavy pause. "Repeat that." "I am under arrest. I'm sitting in a cage, handcuffed. My uniform jacket and my wings have been removed by force. I've been accused of stealing my own identity, stealing my mother's Christmas present, and assaulting a gate agent." In the squad room, Sergeant Daniels was chatting with Brenda, ignoring the prisoner. They didn't hear the tone of the voice on the other end of Marcus's phone. "Who did this?" The voice on the phone was now ice cold. It was the voice that closed billion-dollar mergers and bankrupted competitors before breakfast. "A gate agent named Brenda Miller and a Port Authority sergeant named Daniels. They refused to scan my KCM badge. They refused to verify my receipt for the watch. They decided who I was the moment they saw me." Marcus's voice remained eerily steady. "Brenda Miller claimed I was a fraud because people like me don't fly wide-body jets." The sound of a heavy crystal glass slamming onto a mahogany table echoed through the phone. "Are they there with you now?" Arthur asked. "Yes. They are currently joking about my costume." "Marcus, listen to me carefully. Do not say another word to them. Do not sign anything. I am at the estate in the Hamptons. My chopper is fueling up now. I will be on the roof of that terminal in 25 minutes. Understood, Arthur. And Marcus? Yes? I'm bringing legal. The entire team. Merry Christmas. The line went dead. Marcus closed the flip phone and set it gently on the bench. He sat back, closed his eyes, and waited. Brenda finished signing her statement with a flourish. There you go, Sergeant. Glad we could get another thug off the streets before Santa comes. She stood up, adjusting her scarf. Well, I should get back up there. My shift is almost over, and I have a bottle of wine waiting at home. Thanks for your help, officer. You're a hero. Just doing my duty, Ms. Miller, Daniels said, puffing out his chest. You take care now. We'll handle this piece of garbage. Brenda gave Marcus one last smug look through the chain-link fence. Bye-bye, Captain. She sashayed out of the squad room, feeling on top of the world. She had won. She had no idea that the fuse had already been lit, and the explosion was less than half an hour away. 20 minutes passed. Marcus sat motionless. Daniel sat at his desk, eating a lukewarm vending machine sandwich and watching a football game on a small TV in the corner. Suddenly, the phone on the main desk rang. The desk officer answered it, bored. Substation 4. His boredom evaporated instantly. He stood up straight, his eyes wide. Yes, sir. Yes, Captain Russo. Right away, sir. He slammed the phone down and looked at Daniels with panic in his eyes. Daniels! That was the station commander. He's on his way down here. Now! He sounds furious. Daniels frowned, wiping mayo from his lip. Russo. On Christmas Eve? What for? Before the desk officer could answer, the heavy metal doors of the substation flew open with a bang that made everyone jump. Captain Russo, the head of JFK Airport Police, burst in. He wasn't wearing his usual crisp uniform. He was in a rumpled coat over pajamas, his hair a mess, his face bright red. He looked terrified. Where is he? Russo bellowed, scanning the room wildly. Where's who, Captain? Daniels asked, standing up confused. Russo's eyes locked onto the holding cell in the corner. He saw Marcus sitting there, cuffed, in his shirt sleeves. Russo looked like he was about to have a heart attack. Mother of God, Russo whispered. He sprinted across the room to the cage. Open this door, Daniels. Open this God-forsaken door right now. Captain, what's the problem? Daniels stammered, fumbling for his keys. That's just a perp we picked up at gate B42. Impersonating a pilot, theft, assault. Shut your mouth, you imbecile! Russo screamed, snatching the keys from Daniels's shaking hand. He jammed the key into the lock and threw the cage door open. Russo rushed inside to Marcus. Mr. Sterling, sir, I am so sorry. I had no idea. This is a colossal mistake. Please let me get those cuffs off you. Russo's hands were shaking so badly he could barely work the key into the handcuffs. The metal clicked open, and Marcus slowly rubbed his wrists. Someone get his jacket, Russo yelled at the stunned room. And his wings? Who took his wings? A young officer scrambled to the evidence desk, grabbing the blazer and the gold wings. He ran them over to the cell. Russo personally helped Marcus put his blazer back on and pinned the wings onto his chest with trembling fingers. Daniels watched, his jaw on the floor. Captain Russo, I don't understand. He's a fraud. Brenda Miller identified him. Daniels, if you say one more word, I will throw you in that cell myself, Russo hissed. Just then, the substation doors opened again. This time, it wasn't a frantic police captain. It was an invasion. 6 men in identical, impeccably tailored black wool suits strode into the dingy room. They carried leather briefcases and radiated an aura of absolute, terrifying power. They were corporate lawyers, the kind who charged $1,000 an hour just to think about a case. They split into 2 groups. 3 went immediately to the evidence desk, securing the flight bag and the watch. The other 3 surrounded Daniels and the desk officer, pulling out notepads. But the room went truly silent when the last man entered. He was in his late 60s, with silver hair and eyes that looked like chipped flint. He wore a cashmere overcoat that cost more than the entire police substation. He didn't walk, he glided, a shark entering a tank of goldfish. It was Arthur Pendleton, the chairman of the board of Aegis Aviation Group, the holding company that owned not just the airline Marcus flew for, but 3 others, plus the cargo company, and a significant portion of the airport's real estate. Arthur Pendleton didn't look at the police. He walked straight to the holding cell where Marcus was adjusting his cuffs. Arthur placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. It was a gesture of paternal affection, but also a clear signal to everyone in the room. This man is mine. Are you all right, son? Arthur asked quietly. I am now, Arthur, Marcus replied. Daniels looked from the billionaire chairman to the young black pilot, and the pieces finally crashed together in his thick skull. He hadn't just arrested a pilot, he had arrested the chairman's protégé, a man who was widely rumored to be the heir apparent to the entire aviation empire. Arthur turned slowly to face the room. His gaze landed on Captain Russo, who looked ready to faint. Captain Russo, Arthur said, his voice dangerously soft. I seem to recall that my company donated the funds for the new tactical gear your department just received. Is this how you repay our generosity? By kidnapping my senior pilots and stealing their property on Christmas Eve? Mr. Pendleton, sir, please, Russo pleaded, sweating profusely. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake by a junior officer. We were misled by a witness. A witness, Arthur repeated. Ah, yes. The gate agent, Ms. Miller. He turned to one of his lawyers. Get her back here, now. The lawyer pulled out his phone. Daniels, trying to salvage his career, stepped forward. Sir, Mr. Pendleton. She identified him positively as a fraud. She said he assaulted her. Arthur looked at Daniels for the first time. It was like looking into a blast furnace. She lied, Sergeant, Arthur said. And because you were too lazy, or perhaps too prejudiced, to do your actual job, you believed her. You didn't check his federal ID. You didn't verify his purchases. You took the word of a bigot over the credentials of a captain of my fleet. Arthur stepped closer to Daniels, his voice dropping to a whisper that terrified everyone in the room. You didn't just arrest a pilot, Sergeant. Marcus Sterling owns 15% of the airline you just dragged him off of. You didn't arrest a fraud. You arrested your landlord. The color drained completely from Daniel's face. Now, Arthur commanded, turning back to Russo, bring me the woman who started this. Brenda Miller was humming a Christmas carol as she walked back toward the security checkpoint. She had grabbed a latte and was feeling the warm glow of self-righteousness. She checked her reflection in a glass window. She looked, in her mind, like a guardian of the gate. 2 Port Authority officers approached her. Not Daniels. 2 new ones. Ms. Miller? One asked. Yes? She smiled. Did you need me to sign more copies? I'm happy to help. You need to come with us back to the substation. There are some questions regarding your statement. Brenda rolled her eyes playfully. Oh, bureaucracy. Lead the way, boys. She expected to walk back into the quiet squad room. She expected to see the fake pilot still in the cage. Instead, when the doors opened, she walked into a funeral for her own life. The room was silent. The air was thick with tension. The cage was empty. Marcus Sterling was standing in the center of the room, wearing his blazer, his gold wings gleaming under the lights. He looked impeccable. He looked powerful. And standing next to him was a man Brenda recognized instantly from the company newsletters and the framed portrait in the headquarters lobby. Arthur Pendleton, the chairman, the man who signed her paychecks. Brenda's latte slipped from her hand. It hit the floor with a wet splat, the foam splashing onto her shoes. No one moved to clean it up. Mr. Pendleton, Brenda stammered, her voice trembling. What an honor. I didn't know you were here. I just stopped a major security breach. A man impersonating—" "Be quiet," Arthur said. He didn't shout. He didn't have to. The command cracked like a whip. Arthur stepped over the spilled coffee. He held up a tablet. On the screen was high-definition footage from the security camera at Gate B42. "We just watched the tape, Ms. Miller," Arthur said. "We watched Captain Sterling present his ID. We watched you refuse to scan it. We watched you throw it on the floor." He swiped the screen. "And here is the most interesting part. The assault." On the screen, everyone watched in silence as Marcus pulled his arm away and Brenda threw herself backward against the podium, screaming at thin air. It was a performance that looked pathetic and hateful on camera. Brenda's face went pale. The camera angle. It's misleading. He used a technique. He's dangerous. "The only dangerous thing in this airport is your ignorance," Marcus spoke up. His voice was deep and resonant. "You called me boy. You said people like me don't fly these planes. You assumed I stole a watch that I worked 3 years to buy for my mother." Brenda looked around for support. She looked at Sergeant Daniels. Daniels was sitting in a chair in the corner, his head in his hands, looking like a man who knew his pension was gone. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "But I was protecting the airline," Brenda cried, tears starting to form. Real tears this time. Tears of terror. "I've given 25 years to this company. You can't treat me like this over a misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," Arthur said cold. "It was a choice. You chose to humiliate a senior captain. You chose to lie to the police. And you know who you lied about." Arthur placed a hand on Marcus's back. "Marcus Sterling isn't just a pilot. His grandfather was one of the first Tuskegee Airmen. His father was a decorated ace. And Marcus? Marcus invested his earnings into Aegis Aviation stock 10 years ago when we were near bankruptcy. He owns a significant share of this airline. Technically, Ms. Miller, you work for him." The silence that followed was deafening. Brenda looked at Marcus. She saw the man she had sneered at, the man she had tried to destroy. She realized, with a sinking horror, that he wasn't just her superior. He was her owner. "You are fired, effective immediately," Arthur stated, "for gross misconduct, filing a false police report, and discrimination. You will lose your pension, you will lose your benefits, and you are banned for life from flying on any airline under the Aegis umbrella." "No!" Brenda screamed, falling to her knees. "You can't do that. My pension. I have 2 years left until retirement. Please, Captain Sterling. I'm sorry, I was just stressed. Please." She crawled toward Marcus, reaching for his pant leg. Marcus stepped back, avoiding her touch as if she were contagious. He looked down at her with pity, but no mercy. "You wanted the police, Brenda," Marcus said softly. "You wanted the law involved. Well, you got your wish." Marcus nodded to Captain Russo. Russo gestured to 2 officers. "Ms. Miller, stand up. You are under arrest for filing a false instrument, obstruction of justice and harassment." As the handcuffs, the same cold steel cuffs that had been on Marcus's wrists an hour ago, were clicked onto Brenda's wrists, she began to wail. It was a high, keen sound of absolute regret, but it was too late. "Take her away," Russo said. As they dragged Brenda out, kicking and screaming, she passed by the window. Outside, the snow was still falling, but inside, Her winter had just begun. The heavy metal door of the interrogation room slammed shut, cutting off Brenda Miller's wails as she was dragged down the hallway toward the holding cells. The silence that followed was heavy, pressing down on the remaining occupants of the room like a physical weight. In the squad room, the air conditioner hummed loudly, a stark contrast to the shouting that had filled the space just moments before. Captain Russo stood by the door, wiping sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief that looked like it had seen better days. He was a man watching his career flash before his eyes, praying that the hurricane, standing in the center of the room, Arthur Pendleton, would spare him. Arthur didn't look at Russo. He was busy carefully folding a silk pocket square back into his coat. When he finished, he turned his gaze slowly, lethally, toward Sergeant Daniels. Daniels was still standing near the desk where he had processed Marcus. The color had drained from his face so completely that he looked like a wax figure. His hands hung uselessly at his sides. He knew, with the instinct of a predator who has suddenly become prey, that the dynamic had shifted irrevocably. "Captain Russo," Arthur said, his voice quiet but echoing in the stillness. "I believe there is one more loose end to tie up before my pilot and I depart." Russo snapped to attention. "Yes, Mr. Pendleton, absolutely." He turned on Daniels with a ferocity born of self-preservation. "Daniels, front and center." Daniels swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing in his throat. He took 2 shaky steps forward. "Captain, I was following protocol. The witness statement was—" "Protocol!" Russo roared, his face turning a shade of purple that matched the veins bulging in his neck. "Protocol dictates you verify ID. Protocol dictates you call a supervisor before you strip a senior captain of his uniform in a cage. You didn't follow protocol, Daniels. You followed your bias." Russo pointed a trembling finger at the desk. "Badge. Gun. Radio. Now." Daniels stared at his superior officer. "Sir? It's Christmas Eve. If you suspend me now—" "I'm not suspending you," Russo hissed, stepping closer until he was inches from Daniels' face. "I'm stripping you of your authority. You are a liability to this department. You are a disgrace to the uniform, and honestly, you're lucky Mr. Sterling isn't pressing charges for assault and battery for the way you manhandled him. Put them on the desk, or I will have them taken off you." The room watched in silence. Marcus stood tall, adjusting his cufflinks, watching the man who had kicked his legs apart and called him boy just an hour ago. He felt no joy, only a cold, grim satisfaction. With trembling fingers, Daniels unbuckled his gun belt. The heavy leather landed on the metal desk with a dull thud. Next came the radio. Finally, Daniels reached for the silver shield pinned to his chest, the shield he had hidden behind to bully Marcus. He unpinned it. He held it for a second, looking at it before dropping it onto the desk. It clattered, spinning on the metal surface before coming to a rest. "Get out of my sight," Russo whispered. "You'll receive your termination papers by mail. Don't come back to clear out your locker. We'll ship your box to your house." Daniels looked at Marcus one last time. He opened his mouth as if to speak, perhaps to apologize, or perhaps to beg. But Marcus simply looked through him, as if he were made of glass. Daniels turned and walked out of the substation, head down, shoulders slumped, walking out into the cold New York night as a civilian with no job, no pension, and a story he could never tell anyone without admitting his own shame. Arthur turned to Marcus, his expression softening from granite to something resembling warmth. "Are we ready, Captain Sterling?" "We are, Arthur," Marcus replied. He picked up his flight bag. It felt lighter now. "Captain Russo," Arthur said, nodding to the police chief. "Walk us to the gate. I want to ensure there are no further misunderstandings." "It would be my honor, sir," Russo said, practically bowing. The procession that left the police substation was a stark contrast to the one that had entered it. Marcus walked at the front, flanked by Arthur Pendleton and the detail of high-priced corporate lawyers. Captain Russo walked ahead, clearing a path like a royal guard. They took the elevator up from the bowels of the airport and emerged back into the bright, chaotic lights of Terminal 4. The terminal was even more crowded now. The snowstorm outside had delayed more flights, and the anxiety in the air was palpable. But as Marcus stepped onto the concourse, something changed. News travels fast in an airport. The arrest at Gate B400 had been the talk of the terminal for the last hour. Passengers had tweeted videos. Rumors had swirled. But now, seeing the criminal return, not in handcuffs, but flanked by the airport police chief and the owner of the airline, the atmosphere shifted instantly. They walked past the Hudson newsstand. The cashier, who had watched Marcus be dragged away earlier, dropped the magazine she was stocking. They walked past the long line for economy check-in. Heads turned. Whispers rippled through the crowd like a wave. "That's him," someone whispered. "That's the pilot. Is that Arthur Pendleton with him? The billionaire? Look at the police captain. He looks like he's terrified." When they reached Gate B42, the scene was tense. The flight to London was delayed, primarily because the gate agents were in a state of panic after Brenda's arrest. The passengers were restless, but when Marcus came into view, the restlessness stopped. The businessman in the grey suit, the one who had tried to defend Marcus earlier, was standing near the podium. He saw Marcus, saw the gold wings back on his chest, and a wide grin broke across his face. "Welcome back, Captain," the businessman shouted, his voice cutting through the hum of the terminal. It started with a few claps, then a few more. Within seconds, the entire gate area erupted in applause. It wasn't just polite applause, it was a thunderous ovation. It was the sound of hundreds of people who had witnessed an injustice and were now witnessing the rare, sweet taste of vindication. Marcus stopped. He hadn't expected this. He had expected to sneak back on board. He looked at the faces, tired mothers, stressed fathers, college students trying to get home. They weren't clapping for a billionaire. They were clapping for the man who stood his ground. Marcus raised a hand, acknowledging them. The applause quieted down. He walked up to the podium. The young gate agent, a girl named Sarah, who had been terrified of Brenda, was shaking as she held the scanner. She looked at Marcus with wide, awe-filled eyes. "I'm so sorry, Captain Sterling," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I wanted to say something. But Brenda, It's okay," Marcus said gently, offering her a warm smile. "You didn't do this. You're doing a great job, Sarah. Now let's get these people to London." He turned to the microphone at the podium. He pressed the button. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen." Marcus's voice boomed over the PA system, smooth and authoritative. "This is Captain Sterling. I want to apologize personally for the delay and the disturbance earlier. We had a minor technical difficulty with the ground staff, but the faulty parts have been removed and replaced." A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. "We are going to get you out of this snow and on your way to Heathrow immediately. As a token of our apology, I've authorized an open bar for the entire duration of the flight, regardless of your seat class. Merry Christmas." The cheer that went up was deafening. Arthur patted Marcus on the back. "You know that's coming out of your dividend check, right?" "Worth every penny," Marcus grinned. They walked down the jet bridge, the sound of applause fading behind them, replaced by the rush of cold air and the smell of jet fuel. Stepping onto the aircraft felt like stepping into a sanctuary. The Boeing 747-800 was a beast of a machine, a palace in the sky. Marcus inhaled deeply. The recycled air, usually stale to most, smelled like freedom to him. The flight crew was waiting in the galley. When Marcus entered, the relief on their faces was palpable. "Marcus!" Captain Bob Richards, a veteran with 30 years in the sky, stepped out of the cockpit and pulled Marcus into a bear hug. "We heard the craziest story. Tell me they didn't actually cuff you." "They did," Marcus said, pulling away and straightening his tie. "But I think they regret it now. I saw Brenda being walked off by the cops through the window." Richard shook his head. "I never liked that woman. She was a lawsuit waiting to happen. I'm just sorry it had to be you, brother." "It's done," Marcus said. "Is the bird ready?" "Pre-flight is complete. We're just waiting on your load sheet. You taking the jump seat?" "Actually," Arthur interrupted, stepping onto the plane behind Marcus, "Captain Sterling will be joining me in first class. I think he's earned a glass of champagne and a lie-flat seat, don't you, Bob?" Captain Richards's eyes widened as he recognized the chairman. "Mr. Pendleton." "Sir." "Absolutely. Seat 1A is open. We'll take good care of him." Marcus walked to the front of the plane. He placed his flight bag in the overhead bin and sat down in the plush leather seat of 1A. A flight attendant, one who knew exactly who he was, immediately appeared with a crystal flute of Dom Perignon. "Thank you, Lisa," Marcus said. He took a sip. The bubbles were sharp and cold. He looked out the window. The snow was still falling, swirling in the lights of the terminal. He could see the police car lights flashing in the distance, down by the tarmac level. He knew Brenda was in one of those cars, or perhaps already in a cell. The plane pushed back. The engines roared to life. 4 massive General Electric turbines spooling up, vibrating the floorboards. It was a power far greater than any petty racism, far greater than any gate agent's ego. As the plane taxied to the runway, Marcus closed his eyes. He felt the familiar surge of acceleration, the G-force pressing him back into the seat as the 400-ton aircraft defied gravity. V1. Rotate, the nose lifted. The ground fell away. The snow, the police, the cell, Brenda, Daniels. It all became small, insignificant dots disappearing into the whiteout below. They broke through the cloud layer, and suddenly the world was bathed in moonlight and stars, clear skies. 7 hours later, the flight touched down at Heathrow Airport. The landing was butter smooth. Marcus didn't rush off the plane. He waited until the passengers had deplaned, shaking hands with the businessman and thanking the young mother as they left. When he finally walked into the arrivals hall, he scanned the crowd. It was Christmas Day now. The terminal was filled with balloons and welcome home signs. He saw her. His mother, Eleanor, was standing near the coffee shop, wrapped in a thick wool coat, her breath puffing in the chilly air. She looked worried. She had texted him 3 times, asking why the flight was late. "Mama!" Marcus called out. Eleanor turned, her face lit up with a joy that could outshine the sun. "Marcus!" She ran to him, and he caught her, lifting her slightly off the ground. She smelled like vanilla and cocoa butter, the smell of home. "Lord have mercy, I was worried," she scolded him, patting his face. "You said you'd be here for breakfast. It's nearly lunch. What happened?" "Just work, Mama," Marcus said, deciding to spare her the details for now. He didn't want to taint her Christmas with the ugliness of what he had endured. "Just a long day at the office." He reached into his bag. The gold and black Laufer's bag was slightly crumpled at the corners from being tossed around in the police station, but the box inside was pristine. "Here," he said softly. "Merry Christmas." Eleanor took the bag. She opened the box. Her hands flew to her mouth. The Patek Philippe Nautilus sat on the velvet cushion, diamonds catching the airport lights. It was a watch fit for a queen, and to Marcus, she was royalty. "Marcus," she whispered, tears spilling over. This is too much. You worked so hard for this." "I did," Marcus said, thinking of the years of flight school, the exams, the lonely nights in hotels, and yes, the indignity of the cage he had sat in yesterday. "I worked hard so that no one could ever tell us we don't belong." He kissed her cheek. "Let's go home, Mama. I'm hungry." Thousands of miles away in New York, the sun was rising over a bleak landscape. Brenda Miller was not hungry. She sat on a steel bench in the central booking facility in Queens. She was no longer wearing her crisp airline uniform. Her scarf had been taken. Her shoes had been taken. She was wearing an orange jumpsuit that smelled of industrial detergent. The holding cell was loud. Other women were shouting, arguing, crying. The floor was sticky. Brenda stared at the wall. The reality of the last 12 hours was settling in like concrete hardening around her feet. She had called her union rep. He had laughed and hung up. She had called her sister. Her sister said she saw the video on TikTok. It already had 3 million views. The comments were brutal. Her face was everywhere. She thought about her pension. Gone. She thought about her seniority. Gone. She thought about the flight benefits she used to visit her grandkids in Florida. Gone. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the noise of the jail. But all she could hear was the echo of her own voice saying, "People like you don't fly jets." The cell door clanked. A guard walked by, banging a baton on the bars. "Chow time!" the guard yelled. "Sandwiches, 1 each." He threw a wrapped sandwich through the slot. It landed near Brenda's foot. She picked it up. It was bologna on stale white bread. As she unwrapped it, a single tear fell onto the dry crust. It was Christmas Day. She was alone. She was ruined. And she knew, deep down in the pit of her stomach, that she deserved every second of it. Brenda Miller thought her uniform gave her the right to judge. She thought power came from belittling others. But she learned the hard way that true power is quiet. It's dignity. And sometimes it's owning 15% of the company you work for. Marcus Sterling didn't just win a legal battle that Christmas Eve. He proved that while prejudice might be loud, the truth is always stronger. Brenda lost her job, her pension, and her reputation, all because she couldn't see past the color of a man's skin to see the wings on his chest. What do you think? Did Brenda deserve to lose her pension, or was firing her enough? And have you ever been judged by someone who had no idea who you really were? Let me know your story in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of instant justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you never miss a story about karma striking back. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.